You feel in control, yet invisible strings move your choices. Someone maps your reactions and turns them into predictable steps. If you want freedom, learn how the strings are attached. Every silent manipulator starts with a field, not a phrase. The field is an invisible context that tells your mind what matters. Inside that field, your attention narrows, and options quietly disappear. You do not see a cage, you only see a path. The path feels reasonable because your memory fills missing details. Missing details become truths when repeated with calm precision. The field is built by framing, priming, and pacing your reactions. Framing shapes meaning before you evaluate any facts presented. Priming seeds expectations. So your next judgment arrives pre-colored. Pacing mirrors your rhythm until your guard confuses echo with trust. You believe the comfort came from truth, not from synchronization. Belief travels faster than analysis when the rhythm feels safe. First, the baseline is scanned without your notice. You are observed for tempo, pause length, and reward sensitivity. A quiet catalog forms around your words, breaths, and nod patterns. This catalog predicts where you rush and where you hesitate. Prediction enables timing, and timing controls the direction of thought. Direction matters more than content because attention creates perceived importance. Then the frame is planted while you still feel independent. A neutral word is connected to a desirable feeling you already accept. After the link forms, the neutral word guides your preference forward. You think the new choice matches your values, not the primed feeling. The frame never argues, it only arranges what seems obvious. Arrangement beats argument because ease beats effort in tired minds. Next comes the calibration of your resistance. Small requests test how quickly you trade clarity for comfort. A delayed response records how you balance speed against certainty. Your threshold becomes a number, even if nobody says numbers aloud. Once measured, that threshold is leaned on with steady, quiet pressure. Pressure stays just below discomfort, so you rarely call it pressure. Now the micro-yes ladder begins without ceremony. You confirm harmless details to maintain a consistent self-story. Each confirmation teaches your brain to prefer momentum over doubt. Momentum feels like confidence, yet it is only reduced friction. With reduced friction, larger requests feel like natural next steps. The latter looks like agreement, but it is mostly autopilot. Ambiguity anchors are placed where your doubts would normally grow. An anchor is a simple phrase that pretends to resolve uncertainty. Because your mind hates suspense, the anchor feels like relief. Relief becomes proof, even when no proof has been shown. Once anchored, you compare future options to that anchor by default. Comparisons decide outcomes long before you consciously choose. There is also the scarcity fog that blurs evaluation. Urgency is implied through subtle cues, not direct commands. You sense a closing window and rush to keep imagined value. Rushing shortens thought, and shortened thought copies the closest option. The closest option is placed earlier through framing and priming. You believe you followed time, but time followed design. A second layer exploits reciprocity without obvious gifts. The manipulator grants micro-permissions, like space to speak or pause. You mark those moments as respect and feel a debt forming. Debt creates warmth, and warmth quiets suspicion faster than logic. Once warm, you defend the source of warmth to protect comfort. You now police your doubts to preserve a pleasant self-image. Language remains simple while structure stays complex. Simple phrases limit scrutiny while structure does the heavy lifting. The mind handles simple words well, yet misses systemic patterns. Systems hide inside patterns that look like your own habits. When habit and system overlap, ownership feels personal and sincere. That feeling of ownership seals the influence without alarms. Notice how questions are designed to travel one direction. Each question narrows the range of acceptable answers slightly. After several rounds, your words fit the frame perfectly. When your words match the frame, your mind feels alignment. Alignment is rewarding, so you continue to align by choice. The choice feels free, although the lanes were already built. Silence is used as a sculpting tool, not just a pause. Strategic silence arrives exactly where you expect reassurance. You fill the gap with your own reasons to proceed. Self-supplied reasons feel stronger than external persuasion. Because you produce them, you rarely test them deeply. Ownership again completes the loop and hides the original nudge. There is a protocol for handling resistance without confrontation. First, your objection is reframed as proof of your careful nature. Your identity receives praise while your specific doubt stays untouched. The praise appears supportive, so you relax and continue discussing. Then the doubt is redirected toward a safer question with overlap. Overlap allows agreement without conceding the original concern. The tool of selective evidence is timed, not argued. Evidence appears right after you voice a need for certainty. The speed tricks your brain into trusting the source. Fast relief feels like competence, so trust grows automatically. Later you defend the source to defend your earlier trust. Defense becomes loyalty even when new facts suggest caution. Another layer removes competing frames quietly. Irrelevant variables are introduced to drain your attention budget. You spend mental energy dismissing clutter you never asked for. While you clean that clutter, the preferred path remains shining. Cleaning tires you, shining relaxes you, and tired minds choose relief. Relief again aligns with the prearranged direction called reasonable. There is an ethical mask that prevents alarms from ringing. The mask uses words like fairness, care, balance, and calm. These words ride your moral reflexes to bypass deeper analysis. You accept outcomes that match the tone, not the truth. Tone becomes the certificate that validates the structure beneath it. A certified structure is rarely questioned by polite minds. Meanwhile, your body becomes part of the measuring instrument. Breathing rhythm, blink rate, and micro-stillness reveal internal shifts. Even without technology, humans read tension better than they admit. Tension spikes mark moments where a push would face resistance. So the push is delayed until your signals soften naturally. Delayed pushes feel gentle, yet they are simply better timed. The curriculum behind all these tools rewards repeatability. The same frame can guide decisions across different topics. Once you accept a pattern, later steps require less force. Influence becomes a subscription that renews without fresh consent. You keep paying with attention, compliance, and public defense. The invoice is invisible because comfort hides the cost well. What protects you is not suspicion alone, but structured awareness. First, label the field before you process the message inside. Ask what is being defined as important and who benefits. Second, slow the moment that feels safe and inevitable. Ask what would change if time were expanded by a breath. Third, separate tone from testable claims and verify each claim. Fourth, track when your reasons started sounding unusually similar. Similar reasons suggest the frame, not your independent evaluation. Fifth, write your decision in neutral language without borrowed phrases. Borrowed phrases often reveal the path you were paced to follow. Learn to build counter-anchors that restore your range. A counter-anchor is a fixed question you always apply. For example, ask what the opposite frame would highlight now. By forcing a second frame, you reopen silent doors inside. With doors open, urgency returns to its proper size. When urgency shrinks, choice expands, and hidden strings loosen. The final safeguard is ritualized delay for important commitments. Declare a personal rule that important choices require quiet distance. Distance breaks pacing and disrupts reciprocity heat inside your chest. During distance, rewrite the request in your own neutral terms. Compare that rewrite to your values without any loaded words. If the rewrite loses shine, the shine came from someone else. You are not weak for missing these layers before today. The system is designed to feel like your own thinking. Strength returns the moment you watch the frame, not the content. Once you see the field, the path stops feeling inevitable. You can then negotiate terms instead of absorbing them silently. Freedom is the skill of naming the game before playing. You have now met the outer skeleton of the silent system. Inside the skeleton are deeper tricks that bend memory itself. Your recall can be trained to prefer certain outcomes retroactively. When your past seems to agree, your present obeys more easily. The next layer rewires how you remember confusion and certainty. Are you ready to see how someone edits memory without touching facts? You think your memories are solid, yet they reshape under quiet pressure. A manipulator does not change the past, only how you store it. If your memory bends, your decisions follow without resistance. Memory is not a recording. It is a reconstruction every time you recall it. When someone guides the reconstruction, they guide the meaning of your past. Meaning decides identity, and identity decides future choices. The trick is simple. The impact is massive, and most people never notice. First comes the seed of reinterpretation. A harmless question is asked about an old event you feel sure about. The question does not attack the event. It challenges the emotion attached. Once the emotion is doubted, the facts soften automatically. Soft facts can be reshaped by offering a calmer or smarter explanation. You adopt the new meaning to feel more stable, not more accurate. Then comes the contrast insert. You are shown a better way you could have reacted back then. The contrast makes your past self look unprepared, emotional, or naive. To avoid that feeling, your mind updates the story with a new angle. The updated angle matches the manipulator's preferred narrative. You believe you improved your own clarity, but the script was borrowed. A third step uses selective reinforcement. A single detail you forgot is repeated as if it was always central. Because repetition feels like importance, your brain highlights it retroactively. When that detail becomes the center, the whole event reorganizes around it. Reorganized memory now supports their point, not your original view. You defend the new story because it feels familiar, though it was imported. Next, the false closure loop begins. You are led to conclude that the revised memory finally makes sense. Closure feels like peace, and peace feels like truth. You do not verify truth when peace is delivered first. The manipulator adds a final sentence like, "Now you can move on." The sentence installs emotional acceptance, which seals the edit. Another method is the emotional swap. You are encouraged to attach pride, guilt, relief, or gratitude to new elements. Emotion locks memory far stronger than logic does. Once the new emotion binds to the edited version, correction becomes painful. People do not protect accuracy, they protect emotional comfort. That comfort now lives in someone else's framing of your past. There is also the omission frame. Instead of adding new details, key details are quietly removed. Your mind fills the missing space with assumptions matching the context. Because you generated the assumption yourself, it feels authentic. Authenticity is rewarded by the brain as self-truth, even when it is a guess. The guess becomes memory. Memory becomes certainty. Certainty becomes loyalty. Watch how shared recall is used as a weapon. When two people remember the same event out loud, rhythm syncs belief. Whoever speaks more fluently sounds more correct, even without evidence. Your hesitation becomes internal doubt. Their flow becomes external proof. Fluency manipulates certainty, and certainty hijacks memory. You walk away repeating their version faster than your own. This is how identity drift begins silently. Tiny edits shift how you describe your past decisions. Shifted descriptions shift how you judge your present options. A person who thinks they always chose safety will avoid risk again. A person who thinks they once ruined things will seek guidance again. The manipulator wins by defining who you were, not who you are. Your strongest defense is reconstruction awareness. Label emotional edits before you accept logical edits. Ask which emotion changed first, and who benefits from that change. Write the original memory in neutral words before any discussion. Compare it later to the updated version side by side. The distance between them reveals the invisible hand at work. When you feel sudden clarity about an old confusion, pause. Ask if the clarity came from evidence or suggestion. If the clarity removes your responsibility too easily, be cautious. Manipulators often give you relief first so that you stop digging. Relief is not a sign of truth. It is bait shaped like peace. Your memory is not weak. It is adaptive. That adaptability is your power when you control the frame, but it becomes your leash when someone else shapes the reconstruction. The real question is not what you remember, but who guided the remembering. And yet there is a deeper layer still, one that does not fix your past, but erases your hunger for questioning. What happens when someone controls not the memory itself, but the effort to recall it? Are you ready to see how manipulators drain curiosity before it even forms? You believe you ask your own questions, but curiosity can be edited. A skilled manipulator does not silence your voice. They silence your need to ask. Once the question dies, the truth never has a chance to speak. Curiosity is the engine of independent thought. Remove the engine, and the vehicle still looks complete, but it never moves. This is why manipulators attack inquiry, not opinion. An opinion without questions is just a comfortable cage. The first tactic is cognitive overload. Your mind has a limited budget of focus and energy. When flooded with irrelevant details, your brain spends energy sorting noise. A tired mind accepts the nearest explanation to save effort. The explanation feels self-made only because you filled the gaps yourself. But the gaps were engineered in the first place. Then comes preemptive satisfaction. A surface-level answer is offered before you fully form a question. The answer fits well enough to stop your mental search early. You feel already informed, so no deeper digging happens. Early answers act like emotional sedatives, not intellectual solutions. No hunger remains when the illusion of clarity is served first. Next is the doubt inversion. Instead of doubting the manipulator, you are led to doubt your doubt. Your questions are framed as overthinking, negativity, or lack of trust. You withdraw them to protect your self-image, not the situation. Self-image becomes the guard that protects the manipulator instead. You silence yourself to feel reasonable, mature, or balanced. Another layer uses authority mirroring. Your question is repeated back in a calm tone as if already understood. The repetition tricks your brain into believing the issue has been addressed. No answer was given. Only the shape of your concern was echoed. Echo feels like empathy, but it is actually a reset button. By the time you notice, the question has emotionally cooled down. There is also the permission trap. You are led to believe you can ask anything just at the right time. The right time never arrives, but the permission keeps you patient. Patience without progress becomes self-suppressing discipline. You wait long enough to forget what felt urgent. Forgetting feels like resolution, but it is only delay disguised as peace. Manipulators also use emotional labels as silencers. Words like trust, unity, peace, and loyalty are placed before inquiry. Inquiry now feels like disruption, disloyalty, or emotional aggression. Your brain protects the label instead of protecting the truth. You become the guard of the narrative that limits you. Silence becomes a badge of being the bigger person. Observe the distraction pivot. When your question approaches a sensitive point, a new topic appears. The new topic is interesting enough to pull your mind away. Because you shifted willingly, you do not notice the theft. Thieves of curiosity work best when the victim thinks they walked away. There is also the fake transparency trick. A manipulator reveals something small and irrelevant to appear open. This openness buys trust that blocks future questioning. Your brain concludes, someone who hides nothing would answer anything. So you stop asking without ever receiving real answers. Trust is now based on a performance, not on evidence. Curiosity control creates mental autopilot. When you stop asking, you start following. When you follow long enough, you call following your own decision. The most powerful manipulation is the one you defend as independence. The counter-defense begins with question persistence. Never let a question die just because the mood shifted. If the answer is delayed, write the question down and return later. Returning proves you, not the moment, owns the inquiry. Next, separate question value from emotional tone. A question is not rude, negative, or disloyal by nature. A question is a tool that checks whether reality is aligned with words. If someone fears the tool, they fear what the tool will expose. Also, watch your energy level when a question suddenly feels unnecessary. Did clarity arrive, or did your focus get redirected? When sudden peace appears without evidence, treat it as a signal, not a solution. Curiosity is not noise. It is a survival skill. When someone teaches you to mute it, they are not protecting peace. They are protecting control. But something even quieter exists beneath this layer. What if someone controls not your questions, not your memories, but your emotional baseline itself? What happens when your feelings are trained to obey before your thoughts even start? Are you ready to see how manipulators program emotions to react on command? You think you feel on your own, but your emotions can be pre-programmed. A manipulator does not need to change your thoughts if they can change your feelings first. When emotion leads, logic only follows the path already chosen. Emotions move faster than reasoning because they are tied to survival. Whoever controls your emotional reflex controls your decisions before thought arrives. This is the hidden battlefield most people never notice. The first tool is emotional tagging. A neutral word, symbol, or person is quietly linked to a feeling. Repeat the pairing enough times, and the feeling becomes automatic. You no longer judge the thing, you react to the tag attached to it. Once tagged, the word triggers approval, fear, guilt, or comfort on command. You call it instinct, but it is conditioned response. Next is emotional contrast flooding. Two opposite emotions are placed back to train your reactions. Fear, then safety. Shame, then validation. Doubt, then praise. The brain learns to chase the second emotion as relief. Whatever delivers that relief becomes the safe source of comfort. You stop questioning the source because it regulates your mood. There is also the emotional mirror trap. Your feelings are echoed with just enough intensity to feel understood. You bond with the person who reflects you quickly and accurately. Bonding lowers resistance and increases emotional dependence. You start trusting the mirror more than your own inner signals. Trust replaces verification and influence becomes effortless. Another pattern is emotional timeout. When your emotion does not serve their agenda, they withdraw attention. Humans are wired to restore connection, so you adjust your emotion to match theirs. Now your internal state is shaped by external approval. Approval is no longer a reaction, it becomes a requirement. Watch the guilt pulse technique. A tiny dose of disappointment is introduced when you resist. Not anger, just subtle emotional distance. Distance triggers your fear of being the problem. You correct yourself to restore harmony without being asked. Correction feels voluntary, but it is emotional conditioning. Then comes the preloaded reward. You receive praise or warmth before you earn it. Your brain registers the giver as a stable source of positive emotion. Later, when rewards are removed, you work harder to get them back. This turns emotional validation into a leash disguised as kindness. Manipulators also weaponize neutrality. They speak in calm tones when you feel intense. Your brain reads their calmness as superiority over your emotion. To match their level, you suppress your own feelings. Suppression creates imbalance, and imbalance needs correction. They become the emotional thermostat you keep adjusting to. Observe the emotional echo delay. Your reaction is ignored at first, then acknowledged later. The delay makes you crave being seen, so you amplify your emotions. Amplified emotions reveal your weak points with perfect clarity. Once mapped, those weak points can be triggered at will. With time, emotional reactivity becomes predictable. Predictable emotion is programmable behavior. Programmable behavior is controllable decision-making. And once decisions can be predicted, they can be guided without force. Your defense begins with emotional naming. When you name a feeling in neutral language, it stops being a reflex. Reflex becomes data, and data can be analyzed before acted upon. Second, separate emotion from source. Ask whether the feeling came from truth, pattern, or timing. Patterns repeat. Truth does not need repetition. Third, track sudden emotional shifts during conversations. A shift without cause means someone is pressing a hidden lever. Label the lever instead of reacting to the feeling. Fourth, build internal rewards not tied to external approval. Self-issued validation breaks the dependence loop. When you do not chase the reward, the leash loses power. But emotional control is not the final layer. There is something even more silent, even more dangerous. What if the manipulator does not control your emotion or memory but controls the meaning of reality itself by shaping what you compare things to? Are you ready to see how comparison frames decide your choices before you choose? You believe you judge things fairly, but every judgment needs a comparison. Whoever controls the comparison controls the conclusion you reach. The decision feels yours, but the scale was built by someone else. The human mind never evaluates in isolation. It evaluates in contrast. Nothing feels good, bad, safe, risky, smart, or foolish on its own. Every choice is weighed against a reference point, often invisible. The manipulator wins by designing that reference point before you decide. The first tool is anchor planting. An anchor is a fixed idea placed early before real evaluation starts. Once anchored, all future options are measured against it automatically. You do not judge the anchor. You judge everything else through it. Who controls the anchor controls the measurement. Next is value distortion. Two options are shown, one terrible, one acceptable. The acceptable one feels smart only because the terrible one was exaggerated. You think you chose wisely, but the range was rigged. Remove the bad option, and the smart choice no longer looks smart. Then comes the scarcity contrast. A deadline is added, not to limit supply, but to limit comparison time. With less time, your brain picks the option already framed as best. Scarcity is not about resources. It is about reducing reflection. Another layer is the worse alternative trick. You are shown a story, example, or person that represents failure. Your choices are then compared to that failure template. Anything above that level feels safe, even if it is still harmful. Mediocrity can feel like success when the bottom is exaggerated. There is also the reverse pedestal trap. Something is praised as ideal, but kept out of reach on purpose. You settle for the lower alternative because it feels realistic. The manipulator keeps the ideal alive, only to make settling feel wise. Observe the comfort comparison. Your old discomfort is reminded at just the right moment. Your current situation now feels like a relief, even if it is actually worse. You compare against the pain in your memory, not the reality in front of you. Memory becomes a tool to lower your standards silently. Manipulators also exploit normalization drift. Tiny declines are compared only to the previous step, not the original state. You accept each step because the drop is small, but 100 small steps become a fall you never agreed to. The comparison was always backward, never wide. The everyone does this frame is a social anchor. You are told the behavior is normal, common, or expected. Your brain compares not to values, but to the group. Agreement becomes safety, even when the group is manipulated too. Your strongest defense is widening the frame. Never compare only to what is offered. Compare to what is possible. Ask who placed the options, who benefits from the range, and what was removed before you ever saw the choices. Second, restore the original baseline. Do not compare step 5 to step 4. Compare step 5 to step 1. Shifts that look small suddenly appear massive when the baseline returns. Third, create internal anchors before you enter decisions. If your values define the scale, No external anchor can quietly replace it. Anchoring works only when the mind arrives empty. But even comparison control is not the final layer. There is a deeper system still hidden. What if the manipulator does not influence what you compare, but influences what you believe is even possible to question? What happens when the boundaries of reality itself are shaped for you? Are you ready to see the final layer, where invisible limits decide your life before any decision begins? You think you see the full picture, but the frame itself can be invisible. A manipulator does not always control your choices. Sometimes they control the limits of what you believe is possible. This is not persuasion, not emotion control, not memory editing. This is boundary shaping, the highest level of silent influence. Once the boundary is set, every decision you make stays inside it. The first tool is idea fencing. You are given freedom inside a mental box you never noticed. The options feel wide, the room feels open, but the walls are already placed around the acceptable zone. You never try to cross the wall because you never see it. Next comes belief seeding. A single statement is planted so early it becomes unquestioned truth. Not proven, not debated, just assumed as foundation. Every new thought must now fit this foundation to feel sensible. Who controls the foundation controls the logic built on top of it. Then comes language limitation. Words shape what the mind can think. Remove a word and the idea becomes unthinkable. Replace a word and the meaning shifts without you noticing. No one rebels against a cage when the cage is made of vocabulary. Another layer is invisible permission. You are subtly taught which topics are allowed and which are disrespectful, unnecessary, overreacting, or too complicated to discuss. Curiosity dies not from fear, but from silent discouragement. A question never asked is a prison never seen. The manipulator also uses role assignment. You are labeled the calm one, the loyal one, the rational one. Now you avoid certain actions to protect the identity you were given. The prison is not external. It is your desire to stay consistent. Observe the false freedom trick. You are praised for independent thinking on safe topics, so you feel intelligent, brave, and free. But the real forbidden areas are never mentioned. Fake freedom is the perfect tool to prevent real freedom. The deepest trick of all is internalized policing. You start rejecting your own thoughts before anyone else does. You censor yourself in advance to avoid discomfort, tension, or conflict. Self-censorship feels like maturity, but it is only obedience without force. This is where silent control becomes self-sustaining. No force, no threat, no loud manipulation, just boundaries you now protect for them. Your final defense is boundary detection. Ask not, is this true, but why is this the limit? Ask not, what should I choose, but who told me these are the only choices? Ask not, what's the answer, but what question is being avoided? Second, rebuild your inner dictionary. Define words on your own terms instead of absorbing borrowed meanings. A free mind starts with free language. Third, introduce forbidden comparisons. Compare your situation to possibilities outside the offered frame. New comparisons break old cages faster than arguments ever will. Fourth, practice thought distance. When an idea feels instantly impossible, pause and inspect the reaction. Impossible often means was never allowed into the frame. Finally, remember the simplest truth. Influence is not evil, but invisible influence is dangerous. Power is not the ability to control others. Real power is the ability to notice when someone tries to control you. You now understand all 7 silent tricks. 1. Framing the field of thought. 2. Editing memory to change identity. 3. Killing questions before they form. 4. Programming emotional reflex. 5. Controlling comparison to rig judgment. 6. Shaping reality boundaries before choice exists. 7. Making you guard the cage, believing it is freedom. The question that remains is not about manipulators anymore. The question is, now that you can see the strings, will you keep moving the same way, or will you learn to cut them one by one?